Hello, I hope everyone's having a great day. And as the cat is wondering what we're going to do today, well, in today's video, we'll be replacing the rear brake shoes and drums on this 2005 Chevy Colorado. We'll be starting off by loosening the 6 lug nuts with the 19mm socket. And now that you got them loose, we want to lift the truck with a jack till the wheel comes off the ground. And as usual, whenever we lift the vehicle, we want to support it with a jack stand. I placed mine under the rear axle tubes. We can now completely remove the wheel. Well, this driver's side doesn't have the retainers it normally has, but the passenger side did. So to remove these, you can either cut them off or remove them as I do, by lifting the edges with a screwdriver and rotate them off. We can now begin removing the drum. I use a flat blade screwdriver to lift all around the outside edge to break it free. In some cases, if it's rusted onto the hub, you may have to break it free from the hub. I'll link a video up top on one of my older videos that show how. Once I have it separated a little, I pull on opposite ends together to remove the drum. It may take some effort. In some cases, if the drum isn't budging, you may have to remove this cover in the back to loosen the adjuster. Usually when this happens, it's because the brakes were uneven or went down to a metal and it has a ridge. But this will help you break it free from the drum. Inside you can see the adjuster's teeth, which you'll have to rotate to adjust the gear down. This brake drum is really glazed and has a couple ridges, which is why I'm replacing it. And this piece here is our wheel cylinder. When you press your brake pedal down, this pushes the brake shoes outward against the brake drum to slow your vehicle. If you notice that the wheel cylinder has any sign of moisture or wetness, it should be replaced, because that means it's leaking brake fluid and could and will get worse. Next, we'll want to use some brake cleaner to clean off all of this brake dust. I like to make sure I have something below to absorb what it cleans off. We're now ready to take the brake shoes off. Starting off with this first spring, you'll want to grab some pliers and pull the spring away from the bracket and lift it away. Once you get it off the bracket, it'll come off the other end by sliding it towards the shoe. You'll want to pay attention to which hole it was hooked into. And we can now just slide off the adjusting lever. This system uses this piece to self-adjust these drum brakes in conjunction with the spring and the adjusting screw. We'll now have to lift this brake shoe retainer spring using pliers. As you lift, you want to guide it in towards the middle off of the brake shoe. You can also slide off the adjuster wheel assembly as well, paying attention to which direction it's mounted. We'll want to lift off the brake shoe retainer spring from the rear brake shoe as well, guiding it towards the center hub. We should be able to slide off both brake shoes now, lifting the spring up a little if necessary. As you can see, the rear brake shoe will still be attached with the parking brake assembly. So to make removing this easier, we'll want to disconnect the parking brake cables where they attach at the frame. To disconnect these, we'll want to give the cables a good pull away from the frame. This will give us enough slack to slide the cables off of the attached bracket. Disconnecting the cable up front gives us a lot more room to work with and will make it easier to install a cable, not having to work against the spring pressure. So now to remove the brake shoe, we'll need to use a screwdriver or something to push down on the spring mechanism that holds the cable stud from sliding out. See the stud? We just gotta lay it against the spring mechanism, push down, and if all goes smoothly, we just slide out the parking brake assembly. This little spring is what keeps it up against that metal piece that locks it in place, so we just push down to be able to slide it out. This is our adjusting screw. We'll now want to clean and add anti-seize to this assembly to make sure that it works as smooth as possible. Starting off with taking off this top piece to clean it and add anti-seize. We just need to add a little. If you've ever used this stuff, you know it spreads everywhere. Now we'll need to add it on the threads. You'll want to open it up so you can make sure that anti-seize gets on the threads it'll use. After you add it on the threads, you'll want to shorten it. Because it opens up when the brake pads wear out, it'll need to be shortened because of the new brake pads and the new drum. Now you'll want to clean these contact points to add anti-seize as well. It'll have 6 spots that you'll want to add it to. Here are the first 2. Here's the next 2. And finally these lower 2. And these are the new brake shoes I'll be using. The rear shoe will be specific to its side. So first you want to make sure that the brake shoe matches, and second you want to use a proper one for its side. So now let's go ahead and reattach this parking brake cable. This reinstall is a lot easier if you have someone holding the parking brake cable from moving where we disconnected it at. But in this case I'll be doing it alone. So the difference will be as I'm trying to get the end through, the cable will want to slide back as I'm doing this. So you want to press down on the spring part trying to get the cable end through. Once you get it far enough, you can use a screwdriver to pry the remainder through. And we just about got it. Well, let's go ahead and reinstall these brake shoes, starting with this rear one. We want to have the brake shoe ready to go in, and using the pliers we want to lift the brake retainer spring up as we slide in the brake shoe. It can be pretty annoying to hold the spring up as you maneuver the brake shoe and try to fit it where it goes at the same time. And once you're at this point, you want to try to slide the end part of the spring into the hole, being careful with the brake shoe not to tear the rubber on the wheel cylinder. Once you get the retainer hooked into the brake shoe, it will not want to sit where it should as of yet. You gotta install the other side first. So let's go ahead and do that. You'll want to repeat the same to install this next brake shoe. Lifting the spring to get the shoe in, then maneuver the spring into the brake shoe hole, This one you kind of have to pull down and to the side while you do it. Once you get it hooked into the brake shoe, we can even out the brake shoes where they're supposed to go. And this is what your setup should look like at the moment. We can now install the adjuster screw assembly, getting one side in first, then pull back on the brake shoe to get the other end on. And just like that, it's back in. And this adjuster works by threading outward as the brake shoes wear, pushing the brake shoes further out to compensate. Let's go ahead and slide this lever back in. Here you can see where it makes contact with the gear to allow the ratchet function to work. Followed by installing the spring, hooking it to the front shoe first, and using pliers to pull it back into the hooked portion of the lever. Now we just want to make sure that the brake shoes are sitting properly in the wheel cylinder slots. And this is the new brake drum I'll be using. Once you verify it matches if you're replacing it, you'll want to clean the contact area with brake cleaner to get rid of any rust protective coating it may have. If you get the brake shoes dirty, you can use brake cleaner to clean them off. We are now ready to test fit the brake drum, and I could tell right away by sliding it on the brakes that they need to be adjusted outward because there's too much play. I put the truck in neutral to allow the assembly to spin, but you'll want to be sure that you have both front wheels chocked before doing this. Now let's go ahead and adjust the adjuster. Just grab a screwdriver and crank it upwards so that the adjuster pushes the brake shoes outwards. You'll want to do this little by little till you get a slight drag in the brakes against the brake drum. Nope, they still feel loose. Well, that's better. You can probably hear the sound difference of the brake shoe barely rubbing against the drum. If for some reason you went too far on your adjustment, if you try to rotate it back the opposite way, the adjuster lever will not allow it. This keeps it from backing off your brakes the opposite way. So to retract the adjustment, you'll have to push away the adjuster lever as you rotate it the opposite way. Next, to reattach the parking brake cables. Unfortunately, I couldn't reattach these while the camera was in the way. So the way I did it was I ended up getting help from my brother. I attached the vice grips on the cable. As he pulled the cable, I reconnected the ends into the bracket. Unfortunately, I did damage the outer covering of the cable, but not the cable that's inside. And now we can install and torque the wheel. Now the brake pedal will tell us how well we did with the adjustment. If the adjustment was too loose, the pedal will travel further down. If the adjustment is too tight, well, the truck will feel like it has a parking brake on. And if it's just right, it'll feel like this. And finally, I drive the truck back and forth, so that the truck does its own final adjustments on its own. Well, that just about does it for this video. I hope you found it helpful and informative. If you did, please click that thumbs up button to support my video and my channel. And please subscribe if you haven't done so.